Well, it's been about a week since the Batman was released, and I saw it 3 times. And after the third time, I have to admit, I am going to take a break from seeing it. I just, when you love a film or a song, you replay it over and over again, and after like maybe the 20th time, you don't get those goosebumps that you normally feel when you're playing the song. This movie is that special to me that I don't want to overplay it. So 3 times is enough for the first week. I've given Warner Brothers and local theaters about $100 of my own money. And once it comes out on Blu-ray, I think I'll revisit the film and check it out. But today I just want to give everybody my final thoughts on the Batman. I've had time to really think it over. I've seen some of my other fellow movie critics kind of review the film and share their critiques, and I wanted to share mine. But let's go ahead and get started. Some of the main complaints I've seen with other critics is that Batman was a little bit lazy in this. It didn't feel like Batman. He was just running into bullets. He just wasn't the true hero that we know. And I find that confusing because this Batman, as we all know, it's a second year. It's a misguided Batman. It's early on in his stages. And again, he says at the very beginning that he is vengeance. He is not the true Batman that we know of that's polished and ready to go as we've seen in other films. He is driven by blinding anger. He does not care about his well-being. He doesn't care about his Bruce Wayne, his real persona. In a sense, Bruce Wayne is dead in this film because Batman is his whole being. And that's what he's consumed with. And I find that out of the many critics are saying, well, it didn't feel like Bruce Wayne, or we didn't get enough Bruce Wayne. The whole narrative of the movie, Bruce Wayne doesn't exist. He's practically dead and surfaces later on in the film when the art comes to play. And I find it odd with a lot of the major Rotten Tomato critics and all the major outlets that have seen this film. A lot of them have said it was too dark, it wasn't funny, Batman didn't smile, which I find utterly ridiculous. I mean, come on, this is a Batman film, and it's just another complaint of mine about the MCU. I'm not blaming the MCU, but how that particular style of comic book films has more or less conditioned critics when they see a comic book film. And to call, like I've said before in other videos, to call the Batman a comic book film, in my opinion, is an insult. This is a film. This is a cinematic graphic novel on celluloid. In my opinion, it is true cinema. I've seen some reviews that have been completely ridiculous. For example, one person was complaining that Selina Kyle wasn't really a Catwoman. He's like, well, what is she? He's peeking through her house like a peeping Tom, and she goes through her closet. You see all this burglary gear and tools, but why is she living in a shitty apartment with strays? And I'm like, okay, you have over 1 million followers. This is your critique and your criticism of this film. It's funny when a film comes out and is polarizing like the Batman. A lot of us, including myself, when we left the theater, we were overjoyed with emotion, but we didn't know how we felt. I just got home 25, maybe 30 minutes ago. So my initial thoughts are these. You ready for this? You guys ready for everybody?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
Fuck yes!
Woo! I didn't know how I felt about this film until the second viewing. That's when I proclaimed it a masterpiece, and I'll get into that in a bit. But I find it odd when a movie is so paralyzing. I didn't mean to say paralyzed, I meant polarizing. I'm gonna leave that in. That we don't know how we feel about it because it's outside the norm. It's outside of the conditioned template that we've seen over the past 10 years. And if it doesn't fit what we were expecting, it's not a good film. And you're just gonna nitpick about certain elements of the film which don't make sense to me. That is not a criticism, that is a nitpick. There's a major difference, and a lot of them need to learn the difference. I've also heard a lot of people say, is Batman woke? In my opinion, when someone asked me that, is Batman woke? And I was thinking about the film since I've seen it 3 times, I'm like, well, I mean, there's this one line that Selina Kyle says about white privileged folks, but it's not a woke movie, so I'm not sure where they're getting this from. Then I did some more research on Twitter, and I find out there's some major YouTubers out there complaining that Jim Gordon is black, played by Jeffrey Daniels, and Selina Kyle is black as well, and they were complaining about that, changing the coloration, having the mayor of Hope being black, and all the evil personas in the film being white, which I think is utterly fucking ridiculous. If that's a lens you're seeing this film through, you've got some major problems. You seriously do.
A couple other complaints that I have, and they have to do a little bit with identity politics. And there was one line that was in this movie that really threw me out of it. It is when Catwoman basically is saying they only care about themselves, these white privileged people. You didn't need to use the word white. You could have just said privilege, and that would have basically done the job. But they said white privileged people. It's very distinct. But there were only a couple good people in this movie. You had Bruce Wayne, Batman, and you had Alfred. Those are the only two good white people. The rest of the three other major players that I would consider like overall like moral good people were, you had Jim Gordon, who's black in this. You had Catwoman, who's not white in this. And then you had the mayor, who's a black woman.
There is one line uttered by Catwoman, which we will discuss in the spoiler section, which damn near ripped me out of the entire film. And of course, we're going to start out with that line. Privileged white men didn't need to be there.
The biggest problem with the film is not the wokeness. Yes, there's some woke touches. You have Catwoman, who is a woman of color, who is, of course, good. And you have the black female mayor, who is good. And you have the black Jim Gordon, who is good. Every white character is apparently bad, like all of them.
I mean, the main hero is white, so I don't know what you're complaining about. Ben Shapiro was the one who talked about that, which I somewhat respect his opinion on a few items, but for him to address that, it just shows his mind's not in the right place, and he saw this film with the wrong lens. And a lot of major critics did speak about that, so I don't understand that. In my opinion, The Batman is not woke. It's a great film. There is a diverse cast, but the acting is so top-notch, A-plus acting. When they finally addressed that to me and said, oh, it's because Jim Gordon and Selena Kyle are black, I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even think about that. The acting's so great. Jeffrey Wright is so amazing. Zoe Kravitz is so amazing that I just didn't think about that. I was just too caught up in the world that I didn't see color, and I wish other people did the same thing. So again, Batman isn't woke. Grow up, man. God, this world nowadays. And last I want to touch is Batman, a masterpiece. After my second viewing, I did proclaim it on Twitter and say that this film is a masterpiece. And Matt Reeves has definitely set the bar for a new template, a new standard for comic book filmmaking. And do I still feel that to this day? You know what? I honestly do, because this film gave me a lot of things that I was not expecting, nor have I seen in a comic book film. Let me explain. First off, there's the romantic subplot with Batman and Catwoman. The ending nearly brings me to tears with the music, the shot, and the cinematography of them longing to be together, but ultimately they can't. It's that forbidden classic Hollywood love that I really appreciate. And that last shot, whoever the cinematographer is, I'll put his name right here. I love the fact that they're driving down a tunnel and they go their separate ways. It's a beautiful ending. And again, I know there's Batman Returns, and there's been some other Batman films with Batman The Dark Knight Rises, where Batman's involved with Ra's al Ghul's daughter, or Bruce Wayne, should I say. But this one felt real. I can feel the chemistry on screen, the intimacy between them, the longing, and I love that. And it's a unique experience for me to, in a comic book film, especially a Batman film, I wouldn't have never expected that. So I appreciate that. The other ways I factor a film to be a masterpiece are these. How does a film make me feel? And I look at all the categories that the Oscars nominate a film with. I'm talking screenplay, cinematography, directing, editing, acting. I look at all those criteria to assess if a film's a masterpiece. And when I look at this film, up and down, even the smaller roles like Con O'Neill, who was Chief Mackenzie Block. He took over after the commissioner was killed. He was a fantastic actor. Alex Ferns, who was the original commissioner who died, he was on screen for a little bit. And then Peter McDonald. Every role from top to bottom, everybody was just stellar. The cinematography is some of the best I've seen in a comic book film in quite some time. I mean, of course, I love the Zack Snyder films. They have excellent cinematography. And, even the Eternals to some extent. The movie and the whole story was another thing. But the cinematography, you can't argue that it was breathtaking and beautiful in some points. The editing, the score, the set designs, everything is an A+ in this film. And plus, how it made me feel. 3 hours. Did it feel too long for me? It did not. As the great Roger Ebert once said, and I'll quote him right here, "No good movie is too long and no bad movie is short enough." I completely agree with that. These 3 hours in each sitting for me flew by. It's an amazing film, and as I mentioned on my tweet, Matt Reeves has set the bar and created a new standard for comic book films. Just like Richard Donner did for Superman back in the late 70s, he has broken new ground and created a masterpiece. And he's broken outside the template we've seen over the past 10, 12 years, and has really shown us that films, comic book films, don't have to feel the same way with each experience. You can create a unique experience and still stay true. to the ground material. And that's what I love about this film. It is a masterpiece, it is timeless, and I highly recommend you see it if you haven't done so already. The Batman is a masterpiece. And as always, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this quick review. I wanted to give everybody my final thoughts, and I hope you appreciate them. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Like the video. And if you'd like to be a Patreon, I have 3 Patreons here. 3 as of right now. I would appreciate a whole lot more. So if you'd like to contribute to my channel and its success, it would mean a lot to me. And as always, thank you for watching Rudy's Movie Reviews. Please take care, God bless, and live long and prosper. I'm out.